Callahan, the breadth and harvesting of information the SIEM's capable of doing. I've been in this probably going on 30 years, and I've seen the growth. I found a resource that's outstanding in finding information and then the most important thing, distilling it, putting it together, which is a real big challenge in this field. We're a financial service. As our title implies, we deal in mortgage, which means we see a lot of personal information, credit reports, financial instruments. And we're really concerned that we are able to monitor the movement of that kind of information and protect it. LogRhythm's been extremely efficient in helping us find the bad guys who are really out there. They're targeting businesses like us. They specifically want the findings, the money. And if you can get in the middle of a loan, you may have to go after 10,000 people trying to find the data, but if you can get 4 houses at $400,000 or $500,000 a piece, you've just harvested $2 million. For us, LogRhythm's given us the kind of insight we need to understand when those threats either are being reconned, found out, or when they're really trying a brute force attack to get at us. So it's excellent for that. I find it very mature. It's well designed. I'm sure if you're speaking with other folks today, you'll find that they're talking about all the new product rollouts. They think these things through. Since I've been in the industry for many years, I've often found people will roll out products very soon, often before they're mature enough to be out in the field. LogRhythm doesn't have that problem. I've been very impressed with that. Our use, except for the experience you often have when you do upgrades, and mostly it's the human, not the software, becoming accustomed to the new material. They've done a really great job. We lived through 3 or 4 years of the product. So in the early time, it was major upgrades, releases, had a lot going on. But now things are almost completely seamless. LogRhythm uses both the central environment and then sensors that it spreads out. It used to be that you'd have to upgrade the central environment, then get all the sensors. As they've moved through things, I can now do one upgrade in one place and tell that central environment to upgrade everything else. It cuts down my time from being 12, 13 hours for an entire operation to like 3 or 4 hours to bring the main environment up and 15 minutes to start up the upgrades, and it's time for coffee, come back, usually I'm done. We tried to size what we purchased as an appliance properly. You never really realize how much data you're gathering, until of course you see how much you're gathering. And you're thinking maybe 100 million records a month, and you find out it's 100 million records a day. But we've been able to deal with that, understand what we're using, and they've also been very helpful about throwing away this stuff. There's a lot of information that computers generate. Not all of it's relevant. And so we've been able with it to look at stuff and begin to filter out, in some cases 20 to 40% of the content that isn't relevant at all. I found through the past 2 years, they've had a few bumps because they've become so popular. And I was in customer support years ago, I understand it. When you get a quick rise in customers, it's impossible to maintain a support staff at the same time that you're having a fast rise in people who've bought your product. But they've worked through it, they've been responsive to it. I've been able to talk to the director of training and the director of support on a couple occasions. We've come to know each other, which is really valuable, especially in our business, because he can look at me and say, this is what we're doing. And I appreciate the fact that they're honest about the situation. They know me well enough now, sometimes to be blunt, which is great. But it's a good rapport, intelligent people, which is really essential. None of this is offshore, it's all inside the United States. When I used to do secret cleared work, it was always a requirement that it be carried on within the boundary of the US. And I've sort of picked that up as a habit. And these guys are really good at it. It's here. Occasionally I can go up to Boulder and see them. But it's very satisfactory, very reliable. They get on top of my problems. We usually fix them, inside 24 to 72 hours. I really can't think of a particular one. I've been very satisfied with what's happening. I guess I know they're going to get another spike in customer base. Hopefully they'll have the ability to ramp up people in support along with the customer ramp up. That's a hard game to play. I've been part of a number of beta tests. So when Cloud AI came out, which is something that Chris talked about this morning, which is phenomenal. The ability for something to give you information in a SIEM environment, you're often gathering data, writing rules to monitor the data so you can see what you think you should see. But they're doing inference engine work where they're looking at what a threat implies and then presenting it to you. In our field, false positives versus true positives are a big deal, but they've kind of taken it a step forward. And I've come to call it, they may offer me information that I look at that I didn't know about, but I should know about. It's not a false positive because it didn't show threat. It's a true insight because it showed me something that I wouldn't ever infer myself. So features like that, the work that they're doing moving forward in that space, especially with machine learning, the sky's the limit in that. I'm looking forward to them doing it. I had to do a proof of concept review 2 years ago when we were doing a rebid and LogRhythm was the incumbent. And I looked at some other companies. The thing that was essential for me was not only that you could gather data quickly and efficiently, but how you harvested it and how you maintained it. A lot of the other vendors had different ways of doing it, nothing I considered reliable, and I was worried about the fact that as their volume increased, the performance of their appliances would decrease. You know, what I found with LogRhythm, especially since I picked up one of the newer XMs, is that it has the capability to handle the volume I'm looking at, but also if I'm going to separate certain parts off onto certain systems, you know, to basically spread those elements out, that was a feature that became really critical for me. And without that, I'd be stuck with the pressure of one box. If it fails, it takes all my operation out. You know, so I get both, you know, strength and diversity because I can use multiple systems. They have that flexibility. The others didn't show me that. You know, so those were some of the things that were important. Also being able to handle tens of millions and hundreds of millions of records from a wide variety of resources. They have something called log source types. Log source types basically let you ingest data from Palo Alto firewalls, Cisco firewalls, big F5s, all sorts of environments, draw the data in and make it relevant. You know, the other environments, whenever I hear an engineering environment tell me it's just a simple matter of programming, it's not. You know, and when somebody says, here's the log source type, and this will do this with your data, and you draw in 10 million records from the firewall, and that afternoon you can make sense of it, that was another reason why. A9, things that are important. The first time you get a SIEM in your hands, you think it's great to gather everything. And then you find out within a couple days, gathering hundreds of millions of records and trying to make heads and tails. It's like, begin slowly, focus on various systems, understand what they mean. A lot of people go, show me the perimeter, show me the firewall, show me the network. You know, pull that data in, and when you've got it, then turn around, look at all of your Windows servers, your domains, those environments. You know, so moving slowly and classifying your data so you can make the rules you design really specific. You know, it helps you, A, if you've got control on it, you can throttle volume, but also when you have anomalies pop up, they don't pop up because you forgot something in a rule. They pop up because they're really something new.